Okay, I tried recording this yesterday, but I made an ass of the TV, and not only that, but the camera as well. So let's do it again, shall we? And let's get straight into it. The Brackens take over some Blackwood land, allegedly, and then the Blackwoods come and they say that the Brackens are bastards, allegedly, and then the Brackens call Blackwoods assholes for trying to, well, for declaring for Rhaenyra, who is a baby killer, allegedly, and then the Blackwoods basically tell them that, you can go. And then so they have a fight. Also, allegedly, because we never actually get to see the battle. Can we have that shit for 5 minutes? That's actually too much to ask. Can we have that for 30 seconds? Just a sequence of people and swords clashing each other. Because that's what the promise of the show is. I'm getting too eager. The twins are buried, and Rhaenyra respects Arik for at least keeping his oath, which is a reasonable thing to do. Jace then gets angry at Rhaenyra because he wants to punish the people who sent the assassin, which is also a reasonable thing to do. And then comes Rhaenys, and she says Otto Hightower would have never suggested this. You see, I said that in my Otto Hightower defense video. I mentioned that Otto is too pragmatic to send a dude who doesn't have a dragon to go kill a bunch of people in a fortified castle. Alright, that would be stupid. But Otto still had mentioned it, and to this point in the show, it's still considered canon that Otto just wanted to kill the blacks in their sleep. Otto should not have said that, and the entirety of the episode 9 is just a big fever dream. Rhaenys then goes on to give some speech about how soon the people won't even remember what started this war, or something about those lines. She talks about all the reasons behind the war being fought. Is it Jaehaerys' death? Was it Luke's death? Or was it when Luke maimed Aemon? I think that this is a generally decent statement for Rhaenys to make, because obviously, if we're going to go backtracking, then the fault is all of it on Viserys for marrying Alicent after naming Rhaenyra heir, or after not naming Aegon heir after he was born. But that's beyond the point. The point is that Rhaenys had said something reasonable, and then she flips that shit right on her head and says something so stupid that it's stupid. Stupidly dumb. Rhaenys mentions that Alicent does not want this war, and it's the men around her who seek bloodshed, which seems to be like a stupid thing to say from the person who committed the most bloodshed for giving a cool entrance in the last season. I hate that scene with a passion, and I will keep bringing it up so long as Condal and Hess give me a reason to bring that shit up, but what she suggests basically is diplomacy and negotiation with Alicent, because Alicent seems to be another woman who doesn't want fighting, because of course in this entire show, the women can't want anything. They're just perfect paragons of peace, and they're being toyed around by the men on their council, because the women don't want war, and they just want everybody to go back home and spend some nice time with their family. You know the other character who really wanted all that shit? His name was Viserys Targaryen, and he's the reason we're all here. God bless him, and I hope he's in hell. Rhaenyra mentions that Alicent called her a fine queen, and then immediately went and backstabbed her and placed her son on the throne. Keep in mind that she says Alicent's son, who is also Rhaenyra's brother, but she doesn't call him that. Cut that scene and let's get into Criston Cole. He's really unfazed. Now that he's Hand of the King, he has more superiority. Not only is he Lord Commander of the King's Guard, he is now Hand. The meteoric rise to power is meteoric. He walks around and he examines that Aegon has made his moron friends Kingsguard. Just another domino that Aegon has put into place that essentially shows that he's a bad ruler, and he doesn't really know what prestigious positions like the Kingsguard mean. Aemond mentions that the Brackens have won a battle, which is an oversight, because Jasper, Tyland, and Orwell, they all collectively agree that the Brackens and Blackwoods have been fighting for 1,000 years, and this is just another stupid thing to consider a win for the Greens, but Aegon is far too eager to fight. Right? And then the Maester mentions that we need the Tullys on our side. Jasper calls Grover, I think his name is. He calls him an infirm fool who can't keep his cock up or something. He basically calls him a useless old man. Jasper wants Daeron to come so that the Greens can fight all together. Tyland wants to call on Jason, who's raising the army in the west. He's been doing that for, what, two episodes now? 3? The council begins fighting, but Alicent is like, you people have no discipline. But Cole comes up with a 14 IQ idea, which is better than the 12 IQ idea he came up with last episode, and even though I shit on it, Arik got really close to actually pulling it off, so I'm not even going to say that it was a bad plan. It was just really rushed, but it almost worked. Cole comes up with the idea that he wants to ride out with a group of hand-picked knights and horsemen so that they can go out and take castles on their own. No siege weapons or anything like that. He just wants to take a bunch of horsies and take on castles. He tells Alicent that the gods favor the bold, and Alicent says that the gods didn't favor Eric, to which he laughs. I mean, that's funny. Aegon says he wants to go with Cole, but Aemon says no because his loss would be too much. That is the end of the small council scene. Mysaria begins watching a dragon. Allegedly, it's Seasmoke who comes to Dragonstone to chill for some reason, even though he should be hibernating or something on Driftmark. Rhaenyra comes and thanks Mysaria, who now wants a reward, and she asks it with the subtlety of a baboon. But she asks for a seat on Rhaenyra's council, which is what she wants. Mysaria wants to punish the Hightowers for their crimes against her, her people, and the small folk particularly. Now, I might sound like a non-progressive jackass when I say this, but the Hightowers are the only people who are actually trying to feed the citizens of King's Landing. If you don't remember, there is a blockade outside, which is stopping them from getting supplies, which is the fault of the Blacks. So, if Mysaria is going to blame anyone, then the blame goes on Rhaenyra and the Blacks. It's not a tactically stupid thing. I'm just saying that the blame game needs to go on the Blacks for once. Mysaria calls Rhaenyra merciful for letting her go last episode, and I want to say this out loud because I feel like people make this into a big spectacle. Rhaenyra is a person who, according to the realm, has not only killed a baby, but for all intents and purposes killed her ex-husband to marry her uncle. I'm going to leave it there. I'll let you decide what the hell to do with that. Rhaenyra also says her dragons sense war, and that Seasmoke is getting restless, so maybe Laenor is finally dead. Joffrey is now sent to the Vale to be warded with Jane Arryn, and Aegon and Vizzy II are need to going to Pentos for their safety. Rhaena is being sent to take the kids to Pentos. Now, she's angry at this because she's dragonless, and as such she seems like she's useless. She needs to be the mother to Rhaenyra's sons because Rhaenyra wants her children to be safe, and she wants Rhaena to take care of them because Rhaena is useless. So that, I mean, it's not a bad scene. I like that. There's at least some drama from the Blacks' camp, which really isn't the case they usually have. Most of the times it's just boring old shit. But Rhaena is very boring. I mean, at least Baela has a dragon, and she can fight in the war, which she is doing. Cut that scene, and let's go to Harrenhal. Finally, Caraxes. A dragon being used to actually fight. Oh, I wonder when that's going to start happening in this entire show. Daemon walks into, and I'm not even exaggerating, he just walks into Harrenhal. There is nobody who is defending it. There is not a single person who comes in and tries to find the dude who came on a dragon. He walks around in this ominous, rainy, cold place. It's like that scene from Shrek where he's trying to kill the dragon. It's funny, I just remembered that. Daemon finds one single guard, and he hits him on the head, and then he walks into the main chamber. This is where Lord Simon Strong is. Simon Strong. And immediately, Daemon claims Harrenhal, and he bends the knee. He's the Castellan, I think. He bends the knee, and Daemon thinks his peas are poisoned. Daemon and Simon start chatting shit, and then Daemon says that your lord sits in the Green Council or something like that, to which Simon says that he blames Larys for the killing of Harwin and Lionel, because basically, how the hell are you going to set a damp place like Harrenhal on fire? My question is Harrenhal wet every single time? Like, all the time? Is that the case? Because if that's the case, wouldn't it get really miserable to live there, in the summer especially? I'm being logical. I think we should put that shit aside for now. Daemon wants to bring Harrenhal from disrepair into repair because he thinks that the Riverlands are undeclared and he wants to garrison the host of 40,000 men in a single castle. That's what causes disease, by the way. But Simon lets him know that the Blackwoods and Brackens have already split. Daemon wants to speak with Grover anyway and then march on King's Landing to take the throne, which is a chair made out of swords, but that's not important. A great host is gathering in King's Landing. Well, I say great host. It's about 14 people on horses. Gawain is here. Now, I know his name's Gwaine, but I have it written down as Gawain because of the Knight of Arthur, so I'm going to keep calling him that, and he looks handsome as hell. Gawain talks to Gawain talks to Cole with Alicent there about Cole's meteoric rise to power, and how Otto served his hand to 3 kings and now he's gone. And then he says, it'll be an honor to ride out with a Dornishman. It's really just an insult to Cole that Gawain is going for here. First he talks about his low-born origins, and then he talks about his rise to power, replacing his father, and now he calls a non-Dornishman a Dornishman, which is racist. And it's insultful. At least that's the case in Westeros. Cole then takes a napkin into war, because apparently that brings good luck. Now, Gimli took a lock of hair, but this is something different. I don't know why, but Cole is starting to grow on me. It's like me being in denial about his bad character is just sort of settling in, and I just enjoy Cole now. It's just fun. Cheese is being pecked apart by ravens, another reminder of Aegon and his shittiness. And then the army marches out. Well, I say army, it's about 14 people on horses. Rhaenyra's council begins arguing like Aegon's, and they push Rhaenyra's advantage, which is the dragons, and that's a reasonable thing to do. Her council members say that swords are not useful in their scabbards, and they really want to start fighting now because hostilities have reached a certain point. They also want Rhaenyra to leave and go to a safe place so that they can plan her war for her, because they've come to the conclusion that Rhaenyra is bad at this. Whereas Aegon is too eager to fight, Rhaenyra is too hesitant to fight. Quite a good dichotomy between the two siblings. Once again, Rhaenyra says that that's borderline treasonous, them wanting to plan her war for her, and then storms out. Rhaenys then brings up Jaehaerys as though it's going to make anything better. For all intents and purposes, if Jaehaerys was the dad of Aegon and Rhaenyra, he would have named Aegon like heir to the throne immediately after he was born, and he would have actually prepared him to rule. Jaehaerys basically disinherited Rhaenys by the means of the Great Council, and I don't think he would have shied away from doing that to Rhaenyra as well. So just because you bring up his crown doesn't really mean that it means anything, because Aegon wears Aegon's crown, and that doesn't really make him seem like a conqueror either. Rhaenys then flies to Driftmark and starts chatting with Corlys, but most of the scene is just her wanting to make Rhaena the Lady of the Tides, basically. It's just her coming to terms with the fact that Joffrey really isn't a Valyrian. I don't know what exactly they're doing with her, but I feel like they're ruining her character because there's no substance to it, and she's just taking the piss. I mean, she'll say something smart, and then she'll say something dumb. It's really not all that much going on. Corlys says that he would never go to Pentos, he would want to fight a war, and something about him being a good sailor. I don't know, that scene was inconsequential and I forgot about it. Rhaenyra then sends Joffrey, Aegon, and Viserys with Rhaena and a couple of eggs, and they're going to leave now. It was confirmed, well, I say confirmed, but it was said that these are the eggs that are going to hatch 200-something years later and are going to belong to Daenerys. And I can accept a lot of fan fiction that Condal comes up with. I mean, I've accepted 13 episodes worth of it, but there is a certain level of writing that it takes, or a certain pandering to an audience, where you take something that Gurm went out of his way to write, especially in Fire and Blood, to prove where Dany's eggs came from, and then you extract that shit and you throw it into the ocean because you want Rhaenyra to be the ultimate savior of the world. Now, this is show canon, Gurm confirmed that, so going by that logic, this is going to eventually cause the saving of the Seven Kingdoms, but let's not get into that, because, truth be told, nothing was really saved, right? I mean, Arya kills the Night King, and then Drogon burns the throne. Her dragons are really useless. As a matter of fact, one of them turns, and is basically turned into a zombie dragon. So, even though I am willing to accept all the other shit that he's done with these characters, accept is the wrong word, I'm willing to live with it, I am not going to accept, nor am I going to give any credit to Condal for writing that Syrax's eggs are going to be the mother of Daenerys' dragons. I will not accept that. That is just straight up fanfiction. You can call me a petty little bitch all you want. That is just my opinion, and I will not accept that whatsoever. Let's get back into it. Helena walks into Alicent's chamber, and she says that she finally feels bad about Jaehaerys, but she says that she shouldn't really feel... Well, she feels like she shouldn't feel bad because babies die all the time. My question to her is, do babies die in their beds all the time? And if so, are they usually left headless when two men take it with them? Because if that happens all the time, then I'm willing to forgive this scene, but if that is rather not usual occurrence, then I would like to revamp my statement where it says that Helena being neurodivergent and borderline emotionless is really not doing anything for her. They just don't want to write any depth to her character, and as such, they're leaving her in a state where they don't have to explain why she doesn't behave in certain ways, but she still behaves in certain ways. I feel like it's wasted potential, and it's wasted acting, because Fia is awesome at acting. Finally, or also, Helena talks to Alicent basically says that she loved Jaehaerys, but she cares more about what they did to Helena. But from the looks of it, Helena is perfectly fine with this. I don't think you have to worry about it. And truth be told, I don't think Alicent gives a shit about anybody, and I don't really like Alicent. This is like her second scene. I don't really like her anymore. I thought she was awesome when she was younger, but she's not the same anymore. Helena also forgives Alicent for banging Cole. Aegon puts on armor that looks grey, boring, and dull. It's not even half as cool as the drip he had in the books, and this is the kind of retconning that I'm not a big fan of. Listen, I can live with a lot of things, I already have, but at least give my man some drip. At least make him look cool. Why can we not, for once in our lives, have a person wear armor that looks badass? Daemon has his, why can't Aegon has his? And Aemond doesn't even have armor, from what I've seen in the trailers. He just sort of flies around with a long coat. That's Aemond's armor. Apparently he doesn't need it. His Kingsguard are taking the piss, and Larry walks into it. Larry walks in, and he basically spoils Aegon's future from the books. I was sort of chuckling at that scene, because that's a good kind of spoilers, which you don't really know are spoilers. But he calls it exquisite armor, but I think it looks grey and that of a bitch. Larry then tells Aegon that people are talking about his bravery. They're commending him for wanting to go out and fight. And then on the other side, people are saying that this is a ploy by Alicent so that her and Aemond can rule in his stead. Larry is basically playing as many sides as he can. I don't even know what he's doing. If he's just an agent of chaos, then he's doing very minimal to, make it happen. But Aegon says that Vizzy never wanted a Master of Whisperers because he thought the position was useless, but Aegon promotes Larys to it, and the actor of Larys is just so good. I mean, he plays that innocent, broken dude, but we know what kind of person he is. Aegon then gets worried that people are actually, or Alicent and Aemond might actually be planning against him, and so he decides not to go. Then the Kingsguard of his offer to take him out on a night of debauchery because there's a certain squire they need to get prickled. And so Aegon says, you people are sworn to chastity, to which they, ironically, they're like, oh yes, of course, your grace. And then they laugh at it, and Aegon looks at him in a serious way. So he wants them to at least pretend like they're doing their duty. Cut to the scenes or the streets of King's Landing. They're full. There's a lot of shit going on. There's almost like there's no blockade. Ulf White is walking around, and he goes into a tavern. He's just a jolly old fellow. I mean, I enjoy him. Right? He's quite a caricature. I like him so far. But he walks into a tavern, takes food from one guy's plate. He's running around, talking shit, sits down. Diana shows up because she has to. She's a reminder to us of what kind of horrible person Aegon is, and she gets groped by some dude. But Ulf feels disgusted by it, which is cool. Ulf then casually drops the fact that he's Jaehaerys' grandson and the half-brother of Daemon and Viserys via Balon. Now, I don't know what kind of man Condal has turned him into, but the Balon Targaryen I knew would never bang anybody who wasn't his sister. That man was faithful to his very end, or at least to the end of his wife. I'm not too sure how long that lasted. But he then gets called out for it, but he's like, oh, I'm their half-brother, you prick. Aegon then walks in and pays for everybody's drinks, to which everybody's like, yippee! Aegon then bullies a boy to start drinking, then he takes him to a brothel. I did not need to see half the shit that happened here. He's trying to find some more expensive woman, and then he runs into Aemond. Then he makes fun of him for keeping the same woman, and mocks him for being like a hound. This scene is nothing particularly. It's just a reminder that Aegon is a horrible person. I think the 5th one in this episode. But Aemond then walks out in full con. How many other green characters are we going to be shown naked? Like, that's a genuine question of mine. How many of them do we have to see naked? Because I'm getting a little tired of it. We've seen Cole, Alicent, now Aemond. We've seen Aegon naked like 3 times already. I'm just getting a little disgusted by it, frankly, because it turns them from people into objects. Rhaenyra then examines a letter from Alicent, because why the hell not? Gawain and a couple of his men want to go to an inn, and they said if the bedding is quite nice, then they'll join him tomorrow morning, but Cole comes and stops them. He wants to allegedly take a castle with a couple of dudes on horses, which I don't see how the hell he's going to pull that off. Cole then spots Balon Moondancer up in the sky because he has supervision, and then they make a run for the trees. Moondancer is the size of a or a big horse. I mean, he doesn't look like he's massive. He might be very young. I don't know what his age is, but he also almost flies into the tree line, and he has to be stopped and commanded by Bela to fly upwards, because that would be stupid, wouldn't it? You wouldn't want to fly into a tree line. I just think he's not the smartest of the dragons out there. She starts doing some circling on top of the forest, above the forest, to see if she can spot any of them, but she can't, so she flies away. And then she comes back to Rhaenyra's council, and she tells them that she somehow spotted Cole. Now, I don't think Bela actually saw Cole. I think Bela's seen Cole like once or twice, for all that it matters to me. And the fact that she is so steadfast in her belief makes me think that she's either superhuman or she's taking the piss, and I'm going to rely on the second one. Because I don't think she could make it out that it's Cole, but she could deduce that if there's a Kingsguard on a horse this far away from the capital, it could be Cole, but then there's a chance it can't be Cole either, because Cole is also in the hand of the king, so he wouldn't just leave the city, because he has to do a lot of ruling, doesn't he? Rhaenyra is then being berated about loosing her dragons, and they all look at her. Jace looks at her as well. She says that she'll consider the arguments, and that's the end of the scene. Then she just sort of walks out. Daemon is angry in Harrenhal because his betting situation is wet. Then he hears a knock on the door, and then in the least tactical way known to man, he just walks out. What if there's somebody trying to kill you? I don't think he's thought about this far enough. He sees a room, and there's some light coming out of it, and he walks in. And I would just like to say that it was such a breath of fresh air seeing Millie back, because it really reminds me of when Rhaenyra and Alicent were good characters. I cherish Millie and Emily's characters and their acting, because they were absolutely awesome. Rhaenyra, when she was younger, was selfish, impetuous. She made bad decisions. She has to live with them. Rhaenyra, when she's older, is dull, and she makes dumb decisions and still gets away with them somehow. Emily, when she was Alicent, had to live with the fact that she was being toyed around, but then ultimately she had to fight for her liberty and her autonomy. And then Olivia's Alicent is still being toyed around because she has no goddamn autonomy. All she has is 2 scenes with Cole, which I don't want to watch anymore. But he looks at Jaehaerys' head being sewn on, and he feels sad about it. Please. Sorry, I don't mean to say please. Finally, we get to see some actual depth in Daemon walking cliché of a villain Targaryen. He then wakes up from this hallucination. It's a hallucination, by the way. Millie's not back, which is what broke my heart. Alice tells him that he's going to die in here. Valid thing to say. He's just standing by the Godswood. Rhaenyra then walks in and talks to Mysaria about wanting to talk to Alicent. She says she needs to be face-to-face with her. Mysaria suggests that killing her would be easier. Smartest thing anybody said this entire episode. Well done, Mysaria. I never thought you would be the person who comes up with the smartest thing in this episode. But that doesn't happen, obviously. Mysaria suggests that she can meet Alicent in a place where she goes alone and doesn't reveling around from Dragonstone. Let me end it there. Rhaenyra not only has come up with the idea that she's going to sneak into King's Landing from Dragonstone, but doesn't it take literal weeks to sail from Dragonstone to King's Landing? At the very least, shouldn't it take multiple days? And isn't there a massive blockade? I mean, I know she's dressed like a septa. Is there a chance, maybe, that anybody could recognize Rhaenyra? I don't think there is. She's never actually shown her face to the common people and to the soldiery. She's not like Aegon, who just revels around and shit. But anyway, Septa Rhaenyra is real, by the way. That shit is absolutely hilarious. Insert Saint Rhaenyra meme. But she then immediately teleports into, what do you call it? Oh, no, actually, no, I got more to mention about the last scene. Apparently, she wants to negotiate with Alicent. You remember when Otto Hightower came to Dragonstone last season? What the hell was he there for? What was he there for? He was also trying to negotiate. He brought to you the greatest terms anybody's ever heard in the history of peace offers, and you declined him. You threw away the hand badge, as if he can't make more of those, and then you sent him away, and now you think, after your son is dead, and after Alicent's grandson is dead, you think now she's gonna sit down and be like, oh, well, yes, my queen, you are the rightful queen, and I'm so sorry, we should negotiate. What do you want, my son? Should I kill him for you? Should I poison him? God, I hope that doesn't happen. Septa Rhaenyra is real, and she's just walking around, and she just goes into the sept, and lo and behold, here comes the Queen Dowager. Alicent sits down, and here comes her bestie from the old days. Please, for the love of God, call your knights. Capture her and end this right now. That would be too logical to do, so it doesn't happen. This is a goddamn travesty. They start talking about how they used to wish for, or rather, how they used to watch tourneys when they were younger, and how the men have always wanted bloodshed and war. Once again, basically pushing this point of the women just being absolute paragons of peace and virtue, when the men around them are the ones who are driving them in order to make all these rash and, violent decisions. And wasn't Rhaenyra also willing to make violent things happen last season? Why does she marry Daemon? If Rhaenyra is so anti-war, then why did she need to marry Daemon, the most violent dude alive? Why? What was the face she made in the last season's last scene? You know when she was told that Luke is dead. What was that face? Was she just farting very weirdly? Because that's not the face you make when you want to negotiate after your son is dead. That is the kind of face you make when you want to kill everybody because your son is dead. They have backflipped these two women into being goddamn washboards so that the men can, play out their violent fantasies about being shining knight armors or whatever the hell it is. And she says, this entire scene is a waste of time. These two are morons, absolutely. All right. Alicent tells Rhaenyra that Viserys changed his mind. Do you think me capable of such naked deceit? I wish you were half as capable of anything except for being in scenes with Cole. Alicent then brings up saying that he said Aegon's name and mentioned the prince that was promised. This bullshit again. Rhaenyra says, "Oh, prince that was promised. Did he talk to you about the Song of Ice and Fire?" Spoken like an absolute nerd. And then she says, "It's a story about Aegon the Conqueror, silly. He said that to me once." Haha. Moron. Alicent says, "It's too late, Rhaenyra. It's way too late. You know what kind of person Aemond... Do you know what kind of person Aemond is? Because you're making him seem like he's just this violent, brash asshole who has no depth to him whatsoever. Whereas Aemond was so much cooler in the first season. He was so much more ominous. He had such aura. Now, he's just a little wimp who lies down in bed all day with an old... But, she says, "It's too late, Rhaenyra. I have the high ground." And then, not only does Alicent tell her it's too late, not only does she ask her if she's come to surrender, when she leaves, she just lets Rhaenyra go. What the... Why would you leave and let Rhaenyra go? In that scene before where you were like, I am angry at what they did to Helaena? Well, here's the person who did the thing to Helaena. Even if it wasn't her directly, somebody in her camp did that to Helaena. You know that person who's gonna cause more devastation to your family? That's right there! Capture her. I'm not going to make an outro. This shit is so annoying. It is so annoying. This episode is, at least this scene, is retarded.